Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Ask a Property Manager, episode number 20. This is Wednesday, May 13th, 2020. There we go. Figured out the date. Today's Wednesday, May 13th, 2020. We're coming to you live from Studio 1.0 here at Own Buffalo. I'm Andrew Schultz, principal broker of Own Buffalo Inc. And on today's show, we're going to discuss an investment property in South Buffalo. Before we jump into that, we're going to plug our social media. You can catch a new episode of Ask a Property Manager every Wednesday, 10 a.m. Eastern. You can also follow us on Facebook. If you're watching this live, you're probably already following our Facebook page. If not, you can catch us at facebook.com/Buffalo Foreclosed Homes. You can also catch replays of Ask a Property Manager on our Facebook page as well as on our YouTube page. That's youtube.com. You can search for Own Buffalo, or you can catch a link off of our website, ownbuffalo.com. We also have an Instagram page, instagram.com/ownbuffalo. That's been up, I think, almost a month now. And we post a little bit of different content there than what we would on either of our other platforms. So that's something that might be of use to you moving forward. Before we jump too deep into anything else, I do want to click over to desktop screen here and just mention that if you're not aware, if you're a New York State resident and you're not aware, Governor Cuomo just signed a new executive order last week on Thursday that extends the eviction moratorium for a large majority of tenants in the state. And it also creates a new situation where tenants can use their security deposits towards their rent. So that's definitely something that you're going to want to be aware of. You can catch this on our Facebook page. This is the only place you're going to find our video on this is on our on our YouTube page. It's the only place that we posted this particular video. If you go to Facebook, you can find a link to it. If you go to YouTube, just search Own Buffalo and it'll pop up. It's 9 minutes long, 9 minutes, 52 seconds long. It's all information. There's not a lot of fluff in that particular video, but you definitely want to sit through that and just know what's coming down the pipeline in terms of what tenants' rights are moving forward in the great state of New York. All of that being said, guys, if you find yourself in a position where you don't have a written policy and you're not sure how to deal with these types of situations, feel free to reach out and set up a consult with me. You can get these consults for free. They're a 30-minute consult. It's $0. I'm not trying to sell you anything. I'm just trying to help as many people as possible get through the situation that we're currently dealing with. If you want to grab a free 30-minute phone call, you can grab those at ownbuffalo.com. I do have one left for this week on Friday. And then next week, I have quite a bit of availability open. So definitely take advantage of that. It's a good opportunity if you are not already. It's a good opportunity if you're not already taking advantage of the variety of educational formats that are out there. If you really need somebody to talk to for a half hour that you can explain the situation and get some constructive feedback, definitely worth your time. And the cost is, the cost is right. The cost is $0. So definitely give that a shot. It's crazy how quickly the real estate landscape is changing nationwide right now. It's total insanity. It's impossible to stay on top of everything that happens on a day-to-day basis, especially if you don't do this as your full-time gig. Especially if you don't do this as your full-time gig. It really becomes much more difficult at that point to stay on top of everything. So if you're in a situation where you can't stay on top of everything, you are working another job, real estate's a second career for you, if you will. Professional property management and building a solid team around you are the easiest ways to keep yourself safe. Keep that in mind. It doesn't necessarily have to be us. If you're in the Buffalo market, obviously we'd love it if it was us, but definitely consider professional property management. It's quickly getting to the point where the legislative landscape is changing so rapidly that it's going to be impossible for the small landlord with 1 or 2 properties to stay on top of everything and stay in compliance. And deep down, I think that's probably what the government wants to see, but that's another story for another day. We could talk about that for hours, so let's not even jump into that at this point. So let's jump over to our desktop again. Today we're going to be doing an analysis on a property. It's a 2-unit property down in South Buffalo, New York. The address on this property is 64 Durstein. As I mentioned, this is a 2-unit property. We're actually going to pull up the MLS listing on it here real quick. There we go. So this is a 2-unit property in South Buffalo. I picked this property because there's not a ton of information about it in the MLS. And actually, the reason that we're looking at these properties and also the comps that we're using is there's limited information on each property, with the exception of, I think, one had some good info. So what we're doing is kind of piecing things together and using the information available to us to make a decision. And obviously keep in mind, you're not going to make this decision without having an inspection and things like that on the property. We're just doing a desktop analysis from where we sit here today. So here is our property. This is a 2-unit. These are both 2-bed, 1-bath apartments. This is an upper lower. And it's pretty straightforward. This is basically what you would expect in a 2-unit property in South Buffalo. The one thing I did notice is that the rents are incredibly low. And they even mention it in the comments here. $475 in the upper and $695 in the lower. On 2-bedroom units in South Buffalo, that's really low. You should be probably $750 minimum on 2 bedrooms in South Buffalo right now. So that's one thing that we'll look at when we start doing the analysis, is what happens if you bump the rents up. So we'll take a look at the photos that have been uploaded. We only have 9 of them, so there's not a ton of info here. Looks like the roof is a little bit aged. So we're in a kitchen. This is a very basic kitchen. These are our pressboard style cabinets. This looks to be a Home Depot, probably an Allure type flooring, if I'm a betting man. Pretty basic. And again, more of the Home Depot style. This is either an Allure or maybe a laminate. It's either going to be probably a laminate. If it's not a laminate, it might be a vinyl plank, but that looks like a laminate to me. Another photo. Here's one of the bedrooms. You can see back here, that's a boiler. That is a probably forced. Yeah, that's definitely a boiler. Yep, there we go. There's the bathroom. You can see the boiler. So at least one of these units is heated by boiler. You've got washer dryer hookups, a little bit of a backyard. Not a ton of info in the photos on this property. Not a ton of info in the public remarks on this property. It's listed $95,000. It's 2,064 square foot. It's 2 2-bedroom apartments. Rents is $695 and $475. You saw the photos. You kind of know what we're dealing with. Not a ton of information here. So what I'm doing now is looking at, let me jump back to my criteria page. I'm looking at everything within a half-mile radius of this property. And realistically speaking, I don't want to be out as far as a half mile when I'm comping property in the city. I try to keep it as close to the property as possible. But this at least gives us a good look at what's going on in the neighborhood. We're looking at solds, withdrawn listings, and expired listings about 180 days back, about 6 months back, just to give us a good feel for what types of property are out there. The other thing that I'm looking at, I didn't put it on my criteria page, but I do have it jotted down here in front of me. I'm watching square footages to make sure that we're not more than plus or minus 25% of the square footage. You don't want to take a 2,064 square foot home and try to comp it against a 4,000 square foot home. They're completely different animals. So that's something to keep in mind as well. We'll jump back to the map here. All of the little red arrows that you see are sold properties. Green arrows are properties that are actively for sale on the market. The blue are properties that are temporarily off the market. And the purple is a property that has expired. The listing's no longer active. So this little blue arrow here with a 2 on it, that's our subject property. This property has been listed twice. I don't know if that little pop-up is going to hit or not. But the property's been listed twice. There we go. The active listing, and then obviously before that, there was another listing and it's expired. So we're looking at the active listing there. And what I'm doing, I usually start kind of as close to the subject property as possible and kind of work my way out in circles to look for comparative properties. So the first one that I'm going to look at is this 47 Hillside. It's right around the corner. Why wouldn't we take a look at it? And again, every one of these properties is lacking at least a little bit of information. For instance, in this one, this was a sold before print, so there's really no information at all on this. You have one photo of what looks to be a vinyl-clad duplex, upper-lower duplex in the city of Buffalo. Not really much more information to go on. Looks like some replacement windows. It looks like it's been maintained relatively well. It's 2 3-bedroom apartments, an upper-lower 3 beds. One rent at $450, one rent at $0. This was sold for $90,000. Keep in mind our subject property is listed right now for $95,000. This property is 2,100 square foot, and our subject property is 2,064 square foot. Given what I know about property in South Buffalo, this is my bread and butter neighborhood. I've loved South Buffalo for years. We do a lot of business in South Buffalo. So I'm going to go ahead and say, yeah, I'm willing to use this as a comp simply because I know quite a bit about the area. Even having just the one photo, I feel comfortable enough using that as a potential comp. So we'll go ahead and throw that one on our list. Next one I'm going to look at is 58 Edison. This one's a block away. It's worth noting that in this area, in this neighborhood, you're right on the cusp between South Buffalo and West Seneca. So when you're comping right along this line, you kind of have to be careful of the properties that you're using to make sure that they are in the city of Buffalo and not in West Seneca, because when you move into West Seneca, it changes the tax situation drastically, which will have a huge impact on your return. So that's something to keep in mind as well. Here is the next comp that we're looking at. This is 58 Edison. This one actually has quite a bit of information. We can see that this one sold for $115. It's 2,113 square foot, just a little bit more than our subject property at 2,064. These are both two-bedroom apartments. Looks like an upper and lower situation here as well. And they give us our rents, $750 and $800. So if you remember a little while ago, I mentioned our subject had rents at $475 and $695, and that those were excruciatingly low. This proves that those are too low. You know, I don't know, as though based on the photos of the original that we have, I think you're probably going to have to put a little bit of work into it to get those higher rents. But that being said, $475, way too low for a two-bedroom. $695, not as bad, but you should be able to bump these into that $700 to $800 range. I think I said $700 to $750 earlier. $700 to $800 range on these units if you put in a little bit of work and do some updates. So I picked this property specifically because there was quite a bit of information on it. There's some good photos so that you can take a look and see what you're comping against. Obviously, this is one of the kitchens. You do have a lot of wood paneling in the one unit. Which, I mean, wood paneling, it is what it is. I don't love it, but it's very easy to scuff and paint and change the entire look of a place. If you were to take this dark wood paneling and scuff it and paint it into a nice bright color, you have so much natural light coming in through different windows and things like that. The entire apartment would change just by scuffing and painting that in a bright color. You don't have to pull it off the walls and re-drywall it. You can get by with a scuff and paint, and it'll look, you know, like a totally different space. So that would be the one recommendation that I have for that. Now we are in the second floor apartment. You can see the kitchen cabinets and things are a little bit different in here. Same style of cabinet, a little different color. I think I like the layout in this apartment a little bit better. It just seems like it flows a little bit nicer. You've got some hardwood floors. Those actually look like they're in pretty good shape. I love this built-in back here. Hopefully we get to see that in another photo. Not from that angle, really. Bedroom, a bathroom. Looks like it's been updated. Let's see here. This is a bonus room on the third floor. So with anything that's labeled a bonus room, I pretty much just ignore it. You can't really count those into the square footage of an apartment unless you have proper egress, 2 forms of egress, and sprinklers, and this, that, the other. I don't see that here, so I'm just going to ignore that this room even exists for the most part. 2 furnaces. They look like they are probably about midway through their life cycle if I was a betting man, just by taking a look at the outside of them. Obviously, you're going to have a home inspection whenever you're looking at something like that. And a couple of hot water tanks. Again, same situation. Those look like those are probably in the later third of their life cycle. And we do have a little garage back here as well, which is kind of a nice touch. And a little backyard. So this is a nice property. This is a good comp, I'm going to say. We're going to go ahead and check that one. It's a good comp. The reason I say that is because of the proximity of the property. Let's see here. Because of the proximity of the property to the subject, and because of the condition of the property, I'm going to go ahead and say, yeah, that's a good comp. This comp is probably a little bit higher in value than what our subject property is because of the condition. This place is just in a nicer condition than what the other property is. So that is something to keep in mind. Let's see here. 35 Durstein. Same street as our subject property. I guess it makes the most sense to take a look at this. A little bit more square footage here. You're sitting on 2,400 square foot. There we go. You're sitting on 2,400 square foot of property here, so that's substantially larger than our subject property, but it is still within our 25%. Our 25% goes up to almost 2,600 square foot, so we're still well within limits, I would say. And again, this is another property that's got limited information. There's only one photo of the property. It's not a particularly high quality photo. It's not a high def photo or anything like that. Limited information that you can tell from this. Looks like it's vinyl clad. Looks like it's had some new stairs put on it. Looks like those stairs might need a railing actually, just to be code compliant. This is a 3-2, so you have 3 bedrooms in one apartment, 2 bedrooms in another. This property was listed for $110 and sold for $120. Keep in mind, again, this is about 300 square foot, about 350 square foot larger than our subject property, so that would make sense. Let's see, low maintenance, vinyl exterior, younger roof, parking, 2-bedroom lower, great living spaces, natural wood, blah, blah, blah. Not a lot of information to help us out in the public remarks on this either. Again, because I'm comfortable with South Buffalo and I understand this neighborhood, do I feel comfortable using this property as a comp? Yes, I do. It's one of those situations where we're looking at limited information and then making a decision based on limited information. This is one of those things that as an investor, sometimes you have to do. You don't always have every piece of the puzzle to make the exact best decision that you want to make at any given time. Sometimes there's not enough comps in the area. Sometimes the comps are just not as high a quality as you want them to be, which is kind of the case here in terms of the listing quality and the information that's available. It's better to have some information than to have no information and shoot from the hip, which is what I see a lot of investors doing. You're basically setting yourself up for failure by doing that. Gathering as much info as you can and then making a call based on that info. Typically, that's what you'll find a lot of investors doing in the marketplace. So now let's actually jump in and do an analysis on this deal. This is our investment property analysis spreadsheet. We do offer this for free. All you have to do is shoot me a message either on our Facebook page, on our YouTube page. You can also email us, hello@ownbuffalo.com. We'll send this over to you. It's just an Excel spreadsheet. It's very simple to work with. And it can really help you to analyze your deals in a hurry. As you'll see here, we can do a deal analysis in very limited amount of time once you have the basics of the property. So we know the purchase price on this property is going to be $95,000. Well, at least that's the list price. That's where we're starting at. So we're going to go ahead and put that in our purchase price. Actual cash invested, we're going to say that you need 25% down on this, which is $23,750. And if you recall, both of those apartments are 2-bed, 1-bath. We'll go ahead and drop a 2 in there. Our current rents of $475 and $695. Total units 2, occupied units 2. That brings our occupancy rate up to 100, and it also gives us our maximum annual rent per year as the property sits right now. It breaks it out monthly and also yearly. If you had extra income coming in from coin-operated laundry or garages or something along those lines, you could drop that income here, and it would all get factored into your gross annual income, which is super important. For the property taxes, we're going to jump back to the MLS here and scroll down to the bottom. They're claiming a total tax of $1,047 with a, let's see here, with an assessed value of, back here. There we go. Assessed value $40,000 and total taxes of $1,047. So we're going to put $1,047 in there for our property taxes. But the other thing I want to do is come up here and drop the assessed value into our tax calculator. Property assessed value of tax, $40,000. This is a homestead 1 to 4 unit property. So we're showing a true tax of $1,097. Always go with the more conservative value. We'll drop $1,097 in there. Electric and gas, we're going to leave blank because you don't have common meters in a 2-unit usually. The only time that you're going to have an electric or a gas expense is during a vacancy. And hopefully that's occurring during a summer month, so you're not spending a ton of money to keep a unit warm. if that happens, you're better off keeping it warm than letting your pipes freeze. So something to keep in mind. Water bills in the city of Buffalo typically run about $200 a quarter. Between $150 and $200 a quarter is what we tell people to budget for. So I'm going to throw $800 in there as a placeholder. And then also user fee, which in the city of Buffalo is garbage pickup. That usually runs you about $200 a year. So we're going to go ahead and throw that in there. So vacancy, management, maintenance, insurance, mortgage. A lot of people don't factor in some of these when they are analyzing a rental property, and it's a huge mistake. You should always be factoring in for vacancy, insurance, management, and maintenance. And when I say management, I don't care if you're self-managing or if you are hiring a property manager. Definitely work in the amount for management regardless, because someone has to run this asset, whether it's you as the property owner, or if you eventually do hire a property manager. You want to make sure that you have that built into your analysis on the property up front, so that you don't find yourself in a position where you're short cash flow because you need to hire a manager or something down the road. So we typically will say for vacancy, maintenance, and management, 10% of the gross annual rents. So I'm going to say 1404. And for insurance, I'm going to say $1,000 for the year. And that's just based off of knowledge of what insurance policies typically go for. You could find higher, you could find lower. Every insurance company underwrites a little bit differently. There's also, different methods for insuring, replacement value, or talk to your insurance agent. I'm not going to sit and jump into all that because I would really stick my foot in my mouth. Insurance is not my strongest suit, but I'm willing to admit that, and I'm willing to contact the people who do know that business. And that's really what it's all about. Mortgage payment, principal and interest only. So we already have, when you're talking about a PITI, P-I-T-I, principal, interest, taxes, and insurance, typically that is all getting paid as part of your mortgage payment. It's all rolled into one lump sum, and the bank takes care of your escrow and everything else. In this particular instance, we want the mortgage, the principal and interest payment separate from everything else that we have going on because of how we're analyzing this deal. So what we're going to do is jump over to our mortgage calculator. We're going to say our purchase price was, again, $95,000. Our interest rate, we're going to drop our interest rate to 3.75, just because that's what it looks like interest rates are doing right now. And then we're going to say we need 75% loan to value. So we need 71,250, which brings us to our loan payments. We're going to drop monthly tax amount in here of 0, just so that it'll go ahead and calculate, because we've already put our taxes in on the other line. So basically what it shows is our yearly loan payment at this point is going to be $39.60 per year. Come back over to our analysis, drop our mortgage in here, and you can see our estimated expenses are $11,269, and our gross annual income is $14,040. So let's come up here and actually start looking at what the returns are on this. We're making some assumptions that we're buying this asset and we're not putting any repairs or anything into it right off the bat. And based on that, you're looking at a cash-on-cash return, which is, this is what factors in your mortgage and insurance, your mortgage and interest payment. This is your cash-on-cash return. This is as if you were going to go and buy the property. The money that you have into this is the money for your down payment in this instance. So your cash-on-cash return, your return against that money would be 11.67%. Your cap rate, this does not take into account your mortgage payment. This would be more if you were thinking about just buying the property outright in cash and you want to know what the return is on that property from a cash standpoint. Probably the best way to consider those two things when you're looking at them. The problem is it's not great. The numbers are not real stellar on this as it sits right now. When you factor in the mortgage and everything, the numbers are just not real stellar as it sits right out of the gate. Let's see what happens when we actually move these rents up a little bit, though. So like this 475 should really, let's bump it to 700. We'll be a little bit conservative on these. We'll go to 700 on both units. And then because we adjusted our rents, we need to come down here and effectively make the changes to our vacancy maintenance and management as well. Boop, boop, boop. There we go. So now we've updated our annual income and expenses. Come back up here, and now we can see, hey, our cash and cash return looks a lot better. When you actually get tenants that are in there that are paying the rent amount that they should be paying, it's amazing how quickly the return improves on a property. Cap rate, 9.12%. Even that looks pretty solid to me. It's just shy of 10%, but if you're not dumping a ton of cash into an asset, that's not necessarily a bad thing. Here's what I want to really know, though, because I don't think that we're going to be walking in and just buying this property without putting any cash in. Why don't we assume that we're going to put $10,000 into this property, which makes our investment, or our total investment cost $105,000, our per unit investment $52,500, but it is going to change our actual cash invested. We're going to assume that we're paying that 10 grand in repairs out of pocket. So we're going to take our actual cash invested and bump that up by 10 grand. Which brings our cash on cash return down, obviously. But I think that the rents will go up when you do these necessary repairs. We're going to go, sky's the limit. We're going to say 800 on those 2 beds. And we also need to update these. Roll back up. And you can kind of see where you wind up on your cash on cash return as well as on your cap rate. And based on this, it's still, we're just shy of 10% cap rate. I think that this property is still probably worth it. You've got a couple of different options here, depending on what the units look like once you get inside. If this property doesn't need a ton of cash right off the gate, right off the bat, right out the gate, there we go, you don't necessarily have to turn these units right away. The thing's still making money with the rents the way they are. Wait until a point of natural turnover rather than forced turnover, and then do whatever work you want to do. So you might not have to spend that 10 grand all at once. You might put 5 grand into the lower unit when that turns over, and then it might be another 2 years before the upstairs tenants move, and you have to put that other 5 grand in. All of those things will have a definite impact on the production of the property, how well the property is producing for you. There's a million different ways to analyze a property once you, there's a million different ways to improve a property once you actually physically own it. But what we've done here is kind of given you the down and dirty property analysis to let you know, okay, is this something that's even worth going to look at? Is this something that's worth making an offer on? Where do I really stand on this property? So that's where we're at on that, guys. Pretty straightforward, the way that we do those property analysis. We do like doing those. We do a lot of those, actually. Several of those a week we do. Just to check on property before we go out and look at it, or before we tell a client, yeah, this might be a good deal, now this might be a deal that you want to avoid, something like that. Definitely worth keeping in mind. So with that said, we're pretty much at the end of our show here, guys. We're going to jump over to our social media. Thanks so much for joining us. I really do appreciate it. New episodes of Ask a Property Manager do drop every Wednesday, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Those are live on Facebook. You can also catch those usually the same day over on our YouTube page. We upload a copy of that onto our YouTube page as soon as the show ends in most instances. You can usually catch that the same day. Follow us on Instagram over at instagram.com/ownbuffalo. You can grab your free 30-minute phone consultation over at ownbuffalo.com as well. Thank you so much for watching. We love producing Ask a Property Manager, and you can definitely help us to improve. Drop a question in the comments either on Facebook or on YouTube, and your question might get answered in an upcoming episode. If you enjoyed this content, or if I brought some value to your day, do me a favor and hit the thumbs up button. YouTube and Facebook both push videos based on community feedback. We want to help as many people as possible, and the best way for you guys to help us is by liking the videos, giving us that thumbs up, sharing, whatever you can do to help us get the message out definitely gets the point across, and it helps us to grow. Next week, May 20th, 2020, at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard, we will have another episode of Ask a Property Manager. Next week's episode, the topic will be building out your real estate team. Who are the players you need on board from day one, or when you're looking at a new market? Maybe you're thinking about investing outside of your home market for the first time. Who are the people that you need to have on your team in order to be successful out of the gate. Guys, thank you so much for watching, and we will see you next week.